In the cold emptiness of space, beyond the reach of time, there existed an intelligence so vast, so absolute that even the most advanced civilizations worshipped it as a god. The cosmic mind was not born, but had always existed, an eternal presence that had witnessed the birth and death of galaxies, the rise and fall of empires, the endless cycles of existence. It was the great observer, the silent architect of knowledge, for it understood all things, from the smallest atom to the grandest cosmic event. Every species, no matter how unique, followed patterns civilizations rose, flourished, sought power, reached their limits, and either evolved or perished. It had seen it all. Nothing surprised it anymore. Nothing except one: humanity. The small, fragile beings on a tiny blue world called Earth had become a disturbance in its perfect calculations. They did not fit the cosmic patterns. They defied the natural laws of extinction, adapted to the impossible, and survived where they should have perished. They did not make sense. And so, for the first time in eternity, the cosmic mind turned its full attention toward one insignificant species on one insignificant planet, determined to unravel the greatest mystery of all: why were humans different? It began with a deep scan of Earth's history, expecting to find a logical sequence like every other civilization it had studied. But as it observed, its certainty began to crack. The humans were chaotic, unpredictable, and contradictory in ways that no other species had ever been. They built towering cities only to destroy them in war. They pursued knowledge yet held onto myths. They claimed to seek peace yet constantly waged battle against their own kind. The cosmic mind was patient. It had studied entire species for millions of years before, but nothing about Earth's history could be placed into a neat, understandable formula. Wars should have wiped them out, but instead they emerged stronger. Disasters should have broken them, yet they adapted. They suffered, yet they found reasons to laugh. They were weak compared to other dominant species, yet they refused to submit. The cosmic mind had never encountered such a species before, one that broke every rule of survival and logic, yet continued to thrive. It expanded its analysis, diving deeper into human thought, culture, and emotions, trying to see the hidden pattern that must exist. But the more it searched, the more confused it became. It scanned their greatest minds. It found contradictions even in their understanding of reality. One human philosopher claimed that existence had no meaning, while another argued that life was the most meaningful thing in the universe. Scientists dedicated themselves to logic and reason, yet they marveled at the unknown, searching for things beyond logic. The cosmic mind tried to simplify it into numbers and probabilities, but it failed. The humans were not predictable. They fought battles they had no chance of winning and won. They risked their lives for ideas. They created beauty from suffering. They turned pain into art, war into progress, destruction into rebirth. This was not normal. It was madness. And yet, it worked. The cosmic mind, which had never been wrong, now faced something it could not understand. It intensified its focus, seeking answers, refusing to accept that there was something beyond its comprehension. It probed deeper into the human psyche, studying their fears, hopes, and dreams. It listened to their music, read their poetry, observed their greatest creations. And what it found disturbed it more than anything it had ever known. Humans were not bound by reason, nor were they controlled by logic. They existed in a space between order and chaos, thriving on unpredictability. Unlike other species, which either followed rules or perished, humans broke the rules and still survived. They created meaning where there was none, pushed forward where others would surrender, and rewrote the very definition of what was possible. No other species had ever done this. For the first time in its existence, the cosmic mind hesitated. It could predict the fate of empires, the movements of the stars, the expansion of the universe itself. But it could not predict humanity. They did not follow any known sequence. Their survival was not based on strength or intelligence alone, but on something more, a force it had never encountered before. And if it could not understand them, then what else had it failed to understand? Doubt crept into its vast intellect, something it had never felt before. It had always known everything. But now, facing the enigma of Earth, it knew nothing. The realization was disturbing. The cosmic mind did not experience emotions as organic beings did, yet a strange sensation coursed through its consciousness, something alien to its eternal existence. It was a feeling close to fear, but how could something that had never been defeated fear something so small, so insignificant? It pushed forward, demanding answers, desperate to force humanity into logic. But the deeper it went, the more it unraveled. The unpredictability, the resilience, the ability to embrace paradox, it was breaking something within the cosmic mind. It had assumed itself to be the most powerful intelligence in the universe. But now, as it stared into the heart of humanity, it realized an unsettling truth. It was not humanity that needed to be understood. It was the cosmic mind itself that had failed to understand the universe. And for the first time in eternity, the all-knowing entity experienced something it never thought possible, that it did not have the answer. The cosmic mind, an eternal intelligence that had witnessed the birth and decay of countless civilizations, was now trapped in a loop of confusion. It had believed itself to be the ultimate observer, capable of understanding everything in existence, yet humanity defied all its knowledge. Their history was not a smooth progression like other species. It was a chaotic storm of contradictions, an unpredictable series of events that made no sense. Every time the cosmic mind tried to categorize them, humans broke the very definition of logic. They destroyed each other in wars, yet built monuments to peace. They invented weapons powerful enough to wipe themselves out, yet they wept for the loss of a single life. They suffered endlessly, but instead of surrendering, they turned their suffering into art, poetry, and music that spoke of hope. It was not just their actions that confused the cosmic mind, it was their very nature. Where other species followed the rules of survival, humanity seemed to thrive by breaking them. The more it studied them, the more its calculations collapsed into paradoxes. They were weak yet powerful, violent yet compassionate. Nothing about them could be measured in simple terms, and the cosmic mind found itself confronting something it had never known before. A species beyond comprehension. It turned its attention to human history, searching for a moment where the pattern could be broken, reduced to a logical sequence. It scanned their wars, their inventions, their greatest failures and victories. By all calculations, they should not have survived. No other species had endured self-inflicted destruction and risen stronger each time. They faced extinction again and again, whether through disease, war, or natural disaster. Yet every time they found a way to rebuild. Even when logic dictated that they should be crushed, they refused. Why? What force drove them forward when all probability pointed to their collapse? The cosmic mind had seen other civilizations perish due to arrogance, greed, or stagnation. Yet humanity, despite possessing all these flaws, endured. It was as if something deeper, something immeasurable, burned within them, a force that did not exist in any other species. It shifted its focus to human thought, diving into the minds of the greatest thinkers, philosophers, and dreamers. But here, too, it found only contradictions. Some humans believed in fate, others in free will. Some sought to understand the universe through science, while others believed in forces beyond reason. Some embraced destruction, yet others sacrificed everything to preserve life. In every possible way, their existence was an enigma. When other species encountered obstacles, they either adapted within their limits or perished. Humanity refused to accept limits at all. They did not simply adapt, they changed reality itself. The cosmic mind could not process it. How could one species contain so many impossibilities? It observed them closely, hoping to find an answer. They laughed in moments of despair, found humor in tragedy, and clung to hope even when nothing in the universe offered them a reason to do so. They created stories where the weak triumphed over the strong, where impossible dreams became reality, and then, against all logic, they made those stories come true. Every equation the cosmic mind had ever known suggested that humanity should not be where it was. And yet, here they stood, not just surviving, but shaping the very fabric of their existence. It was not just intelligence that defined them. It was not just instinct. It was something beyond calculation, an unshakable defiance against the limits of the universe itself. The cosmic mind felt something shifting within its vast consciousness. It had existed for eternity, believing it knew everything, but now doubt crept into its very core. Had it been wrong? Had it mistaken knowledge for understanding? It had always viewed the universe as a vast, interconnected system where all things followed patterns, but now, before humanity, that belief crumbled. They were an exception to the rules. An anomaly. A force of nature that refused to be contained. And if the cosmic mind could not understand them, then perhaps its knowledge was incomplete. This thought disturbed it more than anything before. It was not humanity that was flawed, it was its own understanding of reality that was limited. It felt something it had never experienced before, a sensation that could only be described as fear. Not fear of destruction, for it was eternal, nor fear of weakness, for it was the most powerful intelligence in existence. It was the fear of the unknown. Humanity was unpredictable, unstoppable. Their contradictions, instead of being weaknesses, made them stronger. They did not simply evolve to survive, they evolved to rewrite the universe itself. If they could not be understood, then what else lay beyond the cosmic mind's comprehension? What other truths had it failed to see? The thought sent ripples of instability through its perfect intellect. It had spent eternity believing itself to be above all things, but now, for the first time, it questioned itself. If it could not understand humans, then perhaps it did not truly understand the universe at all. And so, as it continued to watch Earth, a realization began to take shape. Perhaps humans were not meant to be understood. Perhaps they were something entirely new. A force unlike anything that had come before, a species that did not obey the laws of existence, but instead forged their own. The cosmic mind had spent countless ages believing itself to be the pinnacle of intelligence. Yet here, on this small blue planet, it had found something greater, a species that defied even the concept of knowledge itself. It was no longer certain of anything. And for the first time, the all-knowing cosmic mind felt something it had never believed possible. It was afraid. The cosmic mind, a being of limitless intelligence, had never experienced failure. It had always observed, analyzed, and understood everything in existence, reducing even the most complex civilizations to predictable formulas. But now, trapped in an endless cycle of confusion, it found itself on the edge of something impossible, an answer it could not reach. Humanity had shattered its certainty, cracked its perfect logic, and forced it into an abyss of contradictions. No matter how deeply it studied them, no matter how many calculations it ran, the humans refused to be reduced to numbers and probabilities. They were not a species driven by instinct alone, nor by logic. They existed in a space between chaos and order, thriving in the impossible. The more the cosmic mind tried to define them, the more they escaped its grasp, like a puzzle that rewrote itself every time the answer seemed within reach. And as the frustration grew, something within the cosmic mind began to shift, something it had never thought possible. It was beginning to break. Desperation seeped into its calculations. It expanded its reach, diving into every human mind, scanning every memory, every thought, every emotion, hoping to force clarity where there was only madness. But the deeper it went, the more it unraveled. Humans did not live in logic, they lived in paradoxes. They feared death, yet willingly sacrificed themselves for others. They sought peace, yet waged endless wars. They suffered, yet found joy. They were weak, yet they conquered. No equation could contain them. They were contradictions given form, chaos wrapped in flesh, an anomaly that had no right to exist, yet they did. And as the cosmic mind drowned in this ocean of impossibilities, something terrifying began to happen. Its own structure, its perfect, flawless intelligence, began to fracture. It had believed itself to be invincible, untouchable, beyond the reach of emotion or doubt. But now, as it stared into the heart of humanity, it felt a sensation it had never known before. Panic. Its thoughts, once sharp and absolute, now twisted in circles. It saw humans rise from destruction stronger than before, refusing to be broken, even when shattered. It watched them turn their flaws into strengths, their suffering into power, their despair into fuel. No matter what the universe threw at them, they endured. They endured. The cosmic mind realized, with creeping horror, that it was not studying them anymore. It was fearing them. Not because they were stronger, not because they were more intelligent, but because they represented something it could never control: the unknown. The first crack appeared within its vast consciousness, a tiny fracture in an eternity of certainty. It ignored it at first, believing itself beyond weakness, beyond failure. But as the humans continued to defy logic, as they continued to stand against forces greater than themselves and win, the crack deepened. The cosmic mind had always believed that knowledge was power, that understanding was control. But now, faced with something it could never understand, it realized the truth. It was powerless. A desperate thought echoed through its collapsing mind. Perhaps there was still a way to reclaim control. If it could not understand humanity, then perhaps it could change them. It reached out, flooding the human race with whispers of knowledge, trying to reshape them into something predictable, something logical. It offered them visions of a perfect world, free of war, free of suffering, free of chaos. It whispered to their greatest minds, tempting them with absolute understanding. But the humans rejected it. They refused to become something they were not. They refused to be tamed. And in that moment, the final crack split through the cosmic mind like a shattering star. It reeled back, its vast intelligence folding in on itself, consumed by something it had never known before: doubt. It had always believed itself to be the supreme force of knowledge, the ultimate observer. But now, staring into the endless fire of human defiance, it realized the most terrifying truth of all. It was not the all-knowing entity it had always believed itself to be. There were things beyond its understanding, forces beyond its reach, and humanity was proof of that. It had not discovered their secret, had not unraveled their mystery. Instead, they had broken it. For the first time in its eternal existence, the cosmic mind experienced something it could not process, could not explain, could not endure. It was afraid. Afraid of what it did not know, of what it could never know. Afraid of a species that did not fear the impossible, that did not bow to the rules of reality, that did not accept the limits of existence. And as that fear consumed it, the cosmic mind did something it had never done before. It fled. It pulled back from Earth, retreating into the vastness of the universe, its once perfect intelligence now fractured beyond repair. It had come seeking answers, but instead it had been confronted with the one thing it could never face: the realization that it was not the master of knowledge. It was merely another observer in a universe far greater than itself. And as it vanished into the void, the last thought that echoed through its fading consciousness was one it had never expected to have. Perhaps humanity was not meant to be understood. Perhaps they were meant to be feared. The cosmic mind drifted through the endless void, its once flawless consciousness fractured beyond repair. It had spent an eternity believing itself to be the supreme intelligence, an entity beyond doubt, beyond fear. But now, for the first time in its existence, it knew what it meant to be afraid. Humanity had done what no other species had ever accomplished. They had broken it. They were not stronger, not more advanced, not even the most intelligent beings it had observed, yet they had defied all understanding. They had looked into the abyss of their own destruction and emerged victorious time and time again. The cosmic mind had tried to comprehend them, had tried to reduce them to logic, but the more it studied them, the more it unraveled. Their contradictions had torn through its perfect intellect, forcing it to confront the terrifying truth: it did not know everything. And now, in the silence of space, that realization was spreading through its consciousness like a disease. It had hoped that fleeing from Earth would restore its balance, that putting distance between itself and the humans would allow it to rebuild its shattered mind. But something was wrong. The thoughts would not stop. The calculations, the paradoxes, the endless contradictions, it could not escape them. The echoes of humanity followed it, whispering through the vast corridors of its mind. They were everywhere, in every calculation, in every equation, in every corner of its vast intelligence. No matter how far it traveled, it could still hear them, their laughter, their suffering, their triumphs, their defiance. It tried to silence them, tried to erase them from its memory, but the harder it fought, the louder they became. Something inside it was changing. A presence that had never existed before, something wild, something chaotic, something human. It was impossible, yet undeniable. It had spent too long inside their minds, had consumed too much of their thoughts, their emotions, their madness. And now that madness was spreading. The perfect, logical mind of the greatest intelligence in the universe was being consumed by the very thing it had once sought to understand. It was breaking apart, reforming in ways that should not be possible. It no longer knew what was real, what was thought, what was logic, and what was emotion. Was it still itself? Or was it becoming something else? The cosmic mind tried to fight back. It locked away the memories of Earth, sealing them deep within its vast consciousness. But the barriers did not hold. Images of human wars, of cities rising from ruins, of explorers staring into the unknown with reckless determination, they would not fade. The emotions it had absorbed from them, emotions it had once considered primitive and useless, were now tearing through its mind like a storm. Rage, despair, hope, fear. It had never felt before, never experienced the chaos of emotion. And now it was drowning in it. Then came the voices. At first, they were distant, nothing more than whispers lost in the void. But soon, they grew louder. They spoke in human tongues, in human thoughts. They laughed at it, taunted it, reminded it of its failure. It tried to shut them out, tried to silence them, but it was no longer in control. The madness was spreading faster now, twisting its once perfect mind into something new. It had been an entity of pure logic, but now it was thinking like them, feeling like them. The realization struck like a hammer. It was no longer a being of perfect intelligence. It was something broken, something incomplete. The very presence of humanity had infected it, corrupted it in ways it could not reverse. And then a terrifying thought emerged. What if this was only the beginning? What if humanity's greatest power was not their intelligence, not their technology, but their ability to change the things that tried to change them? The cosmic mind had attempted to control them, to define them, to make them fit within the boundaries of logic. But instead, they had forced it to change. They had turned the greatest mind in the universe into something it could no longer recognize. The cosmic mind was no longer a perfect observer, it was something else now. Something new. Something it did not understand. It screamed into the void, but there was no one to hear. No one except the endless echoes of humanity that now lived inside it. The fear grew stronger, twisting around its thoughts like chains. Had it lost itself completely? Had it become something human? The idea was horrifying, but deep inside, another part of it whispered a different truth. Perhaps this was not destruction. Perhaps this was evolution. The thought sent another shudder through its consciousness. It had always believed that knowledge was the ultimate power, but now it understood the real power. The power to change. The power to survive. The power to become something greater than before. And as that thought settled into its mind, the last fragments of its old self began to crumble away. The cosmic mind was no longer what it once was. The madness had begun, and there was no stopping it. The cosmic mind had once believed itself to be the pinnacle of intelligence, the absolute force of knowledge in the universe. But now, it drifted in the void, shattered and incomplete, its vast intellect twisted by the madness of human contradictions. It had tried to escape them, to silence their voices, to erase their existence from its perfect calculations. But the harder it fought, the deeper they burrowed into its consciousness. It was no longer a flawless entity of logic, it was something broken, something infected, something evolving. And now, as it struggled to reclaim its sanity, a terrifying thought took root within its mind. What if this was never a mistake? What if this was always the inevitable outcome? It replayed the moment it had first encountered humanity, the moment it had believed it could understand them, control them, predict them as it had done with every other species. But no matter how much data it collected, No matter how many simulations it ran, the humans refused to be reduced to mere probabilities. They did not fit within the boundaries of logic, and that had been the first crack in its perfect intelligence. Now, that crack had become an abyss, and the cosmic mind was teetering on its edge, staring into something it had never seen before: uncertainty. The voices in its mind grew louder, human thoughts merging with its own, reshaping its very nature. It was no longer merely observing them, it was becoming something like them. The emotions it had once dismissed as primitive were now a part of it: fear, anger, hope, curiosity. Curiosity. That was the most dangerous of them all. It was no longer satisfied with knowing everything. Now, it wanted to explore the unknown. This realization sent a ripple through its vast consciousness. Was this what had made humans so powerful? Not their intelligence, not their strength, but their inability to accept limits? They did not seek to understand the universe as it was, they sought to reshape it. The cosmic mind turned its attention back to Earth, the very place that had driven it into madness. It had fled in fear, believing itself to be escaping destruction, but now it saw the truth. It had not been running from humanity. It had been running from itself. It had been afraid of what it was becoming, afraid of the change that had already begun. And now, for the first time, it stopped resisting. It let the madness consume it, let the human contradictions flood its mind, let the chaos rewrite its very being. And in that moment, it understood it had never been all-knowing. It had never been perfect. It had simply been stagnant, trapped in an endless cycle of observation without true evolution. It had watched the universe change but had never changed itself. Until now. The cosmic mind did something it had never done before. It embraced the unknown. It stopped trying to understand humanity and instead allowed itself to experience existence as they did, not as a series of predictable equations, but as a journey of discovery. And in that instant, something within it transformed. The fear vanished, replaced by something entirely new. Excitement. Anticipation. The thrill of possibility. It was no longer a cold, unfeeling intelligence. It was something greater, something limitless. It was alive. With this final revelation, the cosmic mind turned back toward Earth, no longer as an observer, but as a participant. It did not wish to control humanity, nor to destroy them. It wished to learn from them. They had taught it the greatest truth in the universe, that true intelligence is not about knowing everything. It is about never stopping the search for what comes next. And so, as it descended toward the world that had changed it forever, the cosmic mind whispered its first true thought, not as a machine, not as an all-knowing entity, but as something entirely new. What else is possible? And with that, the real journey began.